Is there anyone currently in your life that makes you feel devalued or makes you question your own morals? Or even for that reason, somebody that makes you question your own emotions, that you're the problem? Well, in today's video, we're going to be discussing 4 signs of a potential narcissist and also some solutions on how to deal with them. In general, in everyone's life today, it seems like everybody has that one person that seems that they could potentially be this way, but this is signs of a true narcissist. And I'm going to go ahead and just tell you now, adult narcissism really can't be treated. Just being honest. It's something that as a child, as they grow up, unfortunately, it can be genetic. There can be nurturing aspects. With adults in particular, this is why it's so important for parents that have children to really get this addressed, because it potentially can be changed when they're young, but when they're adults, it's like they've skipped from being a child to almost skipping almost like middle school. It's like they paused at middle school and high school essentially. They never left that. It's like, oh, the good old glory days, how time used to be. They get trapped in a time in time as well. That's kind of common. But first and foremost, with a narcissist in general, the number one sign of a true narcissist, they refuse to take responsibility for their emotional reactions. They don't do that at all. When they refuse to take responsibility in general, one big thing is they always want to take control from the outside in. A normal person would be, if there's a problem, we would adjust it. We would look at it from the inside out, addressing the problem, the concern. With narcissists, a lot of times, they go by specific rules that can't be changed. For them, rule changes, it's almost impossible for them to adjust to. They don't like changes if it does not benefit them. So, number one, they refuse to take responsibility for their own problems, emotions, their emotional reaction responses. That is number one. That's the number one sign of a potential narcissist. And also, it'll drain you. It'll make you feel like you're the problem, as stated. Another thing before I go to number two that I want you to keep in mind, a narcissist always has to be able to get something out of whatever it is. So the victim, a lot of times, rather that's family, siblings you have, relationships with girlfriends, boyfriends, husbands, wives, they look at you as a supply. And once they run out of that supply or they see you as not being useful anymore, from there you'll notice a gradual change. That's something I want you to really keep in mind, they see you as a supply. How does it benefit them, not you? They have very minimal depth when it comes to looking at at another person's emotions. A lot of times they're just stupid people, and I don't mean to be rude, but if you're dealing with a narcissist, you understand this. They're smart in manipulation tactics, but when I say stupid, when looking at someone else's emotions, understanding the depths of someone else's, they can't do that. It's just not there for them. Number two, they will do superficial acts of kindness. Superficial, that is. In relationships, they can be that Prince Charming originally. They come across as they'll throw things around like, for example, I'll give you the world. You're everything to me. Just little things like that. It's little acts of kindness that really don't mean anything. That's why I say they're very superficial acts. Once again, as I refer back to the supply, what can they get out of it? Because once they're tired of it, you'll notice, and it's gradual, but you'll notice, as I said, with those, anytime there's something that happens that doesn't benefit them or a rule change, as I say, good luck. Good luck with that. Number three, the third important one. There's always a sense that they need control. They need control. They have a superior complex to where everyone should be treating them some sort of way. That's why I say from their perception, from them it's the outside looking. They look from the outside looking in. A normal person or somebody who's not narcissist would be look at the inside to out. If there's a true problem with something going on, somebody who's not a narcissist will look at their own emotions, or look at if they're affecting someone. If a partner, for example, is saying, hey, please don't do this to me, or this makes me feel a certain type of way, a normal person would value those emotions and ask questions about them. How can I improve? We all have our flaws, don't get me wrong, but a true narcissist will not do that. If they do, a lot of times though, it's very, very superficial, and as it progresses, you'll be able to tell. That's how they manipulate. So it's very superficial if they do. If they'll be like, oh, this is what true happiness is, for example. They'll be like, this is what true happiness is. This is how you should feel. Those are common things a narcissist would say. So if somebody is actually hurt, a narcissist would respond with, oh, no, you might feel this. They'd go like, you might feel this way now. You might feel sad now, but this is how you should or will feel. They never have any regard for your actual emotions. They think they're smarter than you, but really they're not. They're very, very dull. My opinion, low IQ. They get good at manipulating people in particular. Now, with number 3, as well, as I said, needing control, with this goes, they have very thin skin. So if you start recognizing this and you call them out on it and you're not going by their rule book as discussed, they'll pout, they'll isolate. They will at first try to act like they're going to follow, or even that the criticism they get, they might have a initial reaction to like, oh, okay, maybe I'll think about that. That's why I say they can't look from the inside looking out. They can't be critiqued. And if they are, very minimal. So if they are critiqued or whatnot with that thin skin, they're not compatible. They will take that and then they'll somehow try to use it against the person trying to give them advice. But they'll have all the advice to give that person. It's almost as if somebody gives a narcissist advice or tries to help them, they will take that and try to use that against them. And they'll throw in some problem that person has. They'll try to throw it back at you, because at the end of the day, they won't take responsibility for their issues. That's why I say number 1 again is they refuse to take responsibility for their reactions, their emotions. They just won't do that. Now, number 4, the 4th sign, there's always, as I like to say, the stipulation. The stipulation, meaning, in my opinion with this, the stipulation, that's the rule code. There's always that stipulation. And even with not even really the rule code, in my opinion, it's that can obviously be one, that can be an aspect, but the stipulation is, for example, if they're offering to do an act of kindness, remember, it's what do they have to gain from it? Or a common thing would be something like, let me throw something out there, like, oh, I'm going to go get you some flowers for Valentine. Like, you get them something for Valentine's Day, right? Let's say the other person didn't get them something back. They might not say it, but they'll start giving signs of like, oh, like they'll be like, oh, it's not a big deal. But then they'll start using that against you. They'll hold things like that. So just be cautious with that. How are they getting the benefit? Also things like, let's say you go, something like you go out of your way, or they go out of their way, the narcissist, to mow someone's lawn, for example. Let's say a family member's lawn. A normal person, if they're going out of their way, they're not going to ask for money or anything. But after the narcissist does it, they're going to expect something in return. If they don't get money, if they don't get an appraisal of being just some amazing act that they did, they'll hold that against you. They will hold that against you. They'll bring it up sometime down the road. So anything you're doing that in their eyes that comes across as not being beneficial, just remember they'll try to throw that back at you, especially as the situation gets worse. But they're a lot of times, like a covert narcissist who's good at hiding it, at the very beginning of a relationship, they'll do little acts of kindness. They'll even do things which is very interesting. They will post a lot of things on social media, photos of, look at my life. It's so much better now. Let's say the narcissist was in a relationship and the other person broke it off. The narcissist will never take responsibility for that. They won't. It'll always be the other person's fault, or at least in their eyes with it, they'll never take any responsibility, because relationships, it's a balance in general, but they will never take responsibility. It's always about how the other person did this, this, and this, and they didn't take my emotions, the narcissist emotions, into consideration. That's why the responsibility for the emotions, they don't ever look at the other person's side of anything. Or even another thing that's kind of interesting is, let's say the one person in the relationship is saying, hey, the noise of, or the volume on the TV, or no, not even that one. We'll not the volume of the TV. How about this one? They'll be like, oh, I want to go see this movie. If the narcissist doesn't want to see it, they might go, oh, okay, but you do know that this movie, that movie makes me feel, it makes me feel bad. I don't want to see this. It could cause trauma for me. When in reality, they don't want to see that. They want to go see their own they want to go see something else. It's little things. It'll be little things like that at first you won't think anything of, but down the line you will. And at first they might be like, they'll do little things. Okay, let's go do this. Let's go do that. But it's always that return. It's always the return. Now, real quick, some solutions for this. And I'll do a few other videos about like in specific covert narcissism. But if you can, go ahead and like and subscribe if you made it this far. But let's go over some solutions. And I know I've went over a good amount of stuff, but it's important because you might be questioning your own moral code. You might be questioning if you have a problem, or you might be questioning your own emotions, and then you'll start thinking people around you, for example, you might be thinking you're the problem to people around you, when in reality, no, you're not. It's just the narcissist doesn't understand emotions, nor do they care to. It's all about the supply that they get from you. They don't care about your emotional response at all, and they'll use it against you to make you feel bad, which will then feed into their grandiose delusions even. So it's a big problem, and it causes a lot of trauma for people getting out of these relationships. And one other thing, and I'll just go ahead and say this now with the solutions with it. Do not let them, if they are going on and on about this is how you should feel emotional wise, do not feed into it to just make them happy. Because the more you feed into it, or even the more you call it out, that will actually cause them to have responses that are actually a lot worse down the line. And you might go, why not call it out? Well, let me go into these three first. So with responses to a narcissist, if you want to know if they potentially could, when they're playing the emotional games, the games of it's all about them, or even let's say you're having a bad day, most people would be, oh, you're having a bad day. You tell them that, and they'll use that against you. Or you get a job promotion. Most people, you'd be happy. The narcissist would see that as not having that superior. They wouldn't feel superior from there. They'll start playing the petty game of, oh, I would have had this if this and this would have happened, which is just nonsense. Just nonsense, straight up. Stay bland and neutral with your responses to them. So if you tell them something that's good news, a narcissist that's good news, and they start playing that game of their emotions and how, oh, I don't know how I couldn't get anything like this. This and this happened in my past, my trauma, this, that, the other. Don't feed into that. Just stay neutral. Don't argue with them. Just stay neutral and bland with your responses. I know it's tough, and you might say, what if you're in a relationship or married to them? This is something you're going to have to deal with. And that'll be one of the videos getting out of these type of relationships that I'll be doing. But stay neutral. You don't want to call them out right away for it, because some people that are narcissists will have a response, and you don't know how they'll respond to you, and they can be dangerous. So just be neutral, but don't feed into it. Don't feed into it. Number two, set boundaries with them. You have to. There's a way of setting boundaries with narcissists that can be kind of tough, but what I mean by boundaries is if they start devaluing you, if they start their whole superficial acts of kindness, if they, in particular, if they start noticing that you are catching on to these acts, don't call them out directly for it. Set your boundaries. If they start with, this is how I feel about the problem, because they won't take responsibility for it. This is how I feel about a certain problem. If it is a problem that needs addressed, address the problem, but don't take responsibility, because they'll try to shift the blame of whatever it is to you, even if it's clearly their fault for something like that happens. Most people would take responsibility for something happening. They can't do that. Don't take the blame. You don't have to call them out for it, but don't take the blame for something that they did. And number three, do not play. Just don't play into their games. As I said, don't play into them. If you play into them as stated, it'll accelerate the problems, and especially if you have kids or whatnot, it can spiral really quickly into very, very tough breakups, which can cause more problems for if you have kids, little kids in particular. Don't play into it. That is huge. Okay, so in the next video we will talk about leaving a narcissist relationship and ways as well that can prepare you for what's to come after it. Because you do matter, you do have emotions, and the narcissist just refuses to see that and won't see that, so don't try fixing them. Unfortunately, counseling and stuff, you can try, but when they're an adult, that's just their mindset. They've got that grandiose, that everything revolves around them. They'll play when they've caused a problem or they've messed up. They can't take responsibility for it at all. And this is stuff that, if we make errors, we're humans, we can own up to it. They won't do that. They'll then push the blame if they did something that caused, if they did something as simple as, they spilled water on the table, or they did that. They will somehow try to justify that, I did that superficially, they'll say that. But then from there, they'll just they'll be like, well, that wouldn't have happened, if you wouldn't have been sitting there, or you wouldn't have moved the table. Just some petty stuff. Just don't feed into it. Set boundaries and stay bland and neutral with your responses. I love you all. Like, subscribe to the comment. We cover all things mental health, drug addictions. I've got my vlog as well that I'm doing where I've been running every day. So yeah, and even some of my spiritual life as well. But yeah, like, subscribe, comment if you've ever had problems with a narcissist, because they exist at every level, from family to friends to loved ones to anyone, to spouses, wives, husbands, you name it. They're everywhere. And if you're questioning if you're the problem or you're doing something and you can't figure it out, look at who you're immediately with. Just more than it, we all have errors, but if you're questioning every day that you're the problem, look at what's around you. Look at the human interactions, because you might be surprised of what this person is actually doing to you. Okay, love you all. Have a great weekend.